The year is 922 AD. The place is Baghdad, the center of the civilized world, the city of scholars, poets, astronomers, and kings. It is the heart of the golden age of Islam. But on this day, the golden city is stained with red. A massive crowd has gathered on the banks of the Tigris River. They are pushing, shouting, screaming. They have come to watch a spectacle of horror. They have come to watch the state kill a man who committed a crime worse than murder, worse than theft, worse than treason. His crime was speaking a sentence, 2 words. In the center of the square stands a man. He is old, weathered by travel, his beard gray. He is in chains. The executioner stands ready with a blade. The judges stand ready with their scrolls of condemnation. The caliph watches from the shadows of his palace. The man in chains looks at the crowd. He does not look afraid. He looks ecstatic. He looks like a man who has already left the building, leaving only his clothes behind. He smiles. He shouts the words that sealed his doom. Ana al-Haq. I am the truth. I am the real. I am God. To the religious authorities, this was blasphemy. To the political leaders, this was rebellion. But to the secret history of the world, this was something else entirely. This was the moment a character in the video game realized he was the player. This was the moment a program in the Matrix realized it was the code. His name was Mansour al-Hallaj, and he was the first Matrix hacker in recorded history. Welcome back to Hidden Atlas. Today, we are going to tell the most dangerous story ever told. We are going to explore the life and death of the mystic who broke the ultimate non-disclosure agreement. We are going to look at his travels to India and China, where he learned the secrets of the ancient masters. We are going to decode his philosophy of fauna, the annihilation of the self, and we are going to look at the brutal, ritualistic execution that was designed not just to kill him, but to delete his file from existence. Why were they so afraid of him? Why did the entire machinery of the empire mobilize to silence one unarmed man? Because Hallaj did not just find the door out of the simulation, he came back, and he started giving everyone the keys. To understand Hallaj, we must understand the system he was fighting. Baghdad in the 10th century was the New York City of its time. It was wealthy, sophisticated, and strictly controlled. The Abbasid Caliphate ruled with an iron fist, supported by a rigid legal system. The law was the code. It defined reality. It defined who was master and who was slave. It defined the separation between the creator and the creation. God was up there on the throne, distant and majestic. Man was down here in the dust, obedient and fearful. This separation was the foundation of the control grid. As long as the people believed they were separate from God, they needed the caliph to mediate. They needed the priests. They needed the system. Enter Hallaj. He was born in Persia, the son of a cotton carter. Hallaj means the carter, the one who separates the cotton seeds from the fiber. It was a prophetic name. He would grow up to separate the truth from the illusion. He was a brilliant student. He memorized the Quran by age 12, but the books were not enough for him. He felt the emptiness of the words. He wanted the fire. He joined the Sufis, the mystics, the underground hackers of Islam. The Sufis taught that the separation between God and man is an illusion created by the ego, the nafs. They taught that through meditation, chanting, and asceticism, one could polish the mirror of the heart until it reflected the divine. But even among the Sufis there were rules. There was a hierarchy. There was a secret code. You were supposed to keep the secrets to the lodge. You were supposed to speak in metaphors. You were supposed to be sober. Hallaj was not sober. He was drunk on the divine. He left the lodges. He threw away the Sufi robe. He put on the clothes of a common soldier or a merchant or a beggar. He walked into the marketplaces, he walked into the mosques, he walked into the palaces, and he started shouting the secrets. He told the people, God is not in Mecca, God is not in the mosque, God is inside you. In fact, there is no you, there is only God playing the role of you. This was dangerous. This was radioactive. Imagine a scientist today going on national television and proving with undeniable evidence that the government is a hologram, the economy is a fake game, and every citizen is actually a sleeping god who can wake up and take control. What would happen to that scientist? He would be silenced. Hallaj was the Julian Assange of the soul. He leaked the documents. He traveled to India, to the lands of the yogis and the Buddhists. He saw that the truth was universal. He saw the Tat Twam Asi of the Hindus was the same as the Ana al-Haq of his own heart. He realized that the simulation uses different operating systems, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, but the hardware is the same. The hardware is consciousness. When you understand the code of the simulation, you can bend the rules. You can walk on water because you know the water is not real. You can heal the sick because you know the sickness is a program. Hallaj was glitching the reality of Baghdad, and the agents of the system, the jurists, the politicians, the jealous scholars, began to take notice. They called him a sorcerer. They called him a spy. They called him a heretic. But what really terrified them was his love. Hallaj preached a radical, consuming love, not a polite reverence for a distant god, but a burning, passionate, terrifying romance with the absolute. He compared himself to a moth and God to a candle. He famously said, "The moth flies around the flame, it wants to know the flame, it circles closer and closer. But as long as it remains a moth, it only knows the light and the heat. To truly know the flame, it must fly into it. It must be consumed. It must become the flame. When the moth enters the fire, it ceases to be a moth. It becomes fire. In that moment of death, it can say, I am the fire." This is the secret of Ana al-Haq. It was not an act of arrogance. It was the ultimate humility. It was the suicide of the ego. Hallaj was saying, Mansur is dead. The little man you see is gone. The ego has burned away. And what is left speaking to you now is the truth itself. But the system cannot tolerate the truth because the truth is free and the system requires slaves. So they arrested him. They threw him into a dungeon for 11 years. They hoped he would be forgotten. They hoped he would repent. But Hallaj did not repent. He sat in his cell and wrote books that would set the world on fire. He turned his prison into a palace. And when they finally realized that they could not break his spirit, they decided to break his body. They decided to make an example of him that would terrify humanity for 1,000 years. The trial of Hallaj was not a legal proceeding. It was a theater of the absurd. It was a desperate attempt by the Matrix to categorize a file that it could not read. The Caliph, al-Muqtadir, was a weak ruler, controlled by his mother and his viziers. The empire was crumbling. There were riots in the streets, corruption in the palace, and famine in the countryside. The government needed a distraction. They needed a scapegoat. And who better than the man who claimed to be God? The chief judge, Ibn Daud, was a man of the law, a man of binary code, right or wrong, halal or haram. To him, Hallaj was a virus, a logical error that threatened the stability of the database. They brought Hallaj into the court. He was 64 years old. His hair was white. He had spent a decade in a dark pit, but his eyes were blazing. They asked him, "Who do you claim to be?" He answered, "I am the secret of the reality." They asked him, "Do you believe in the pillars of Islam?" He answered, "The pillars are for those who live in the house. I have become the house." They accused him of being a Carmathian spy, a revolutionary group that was attacking the empire. They accused him of trying to destroy the Kaaba in Mecca. Hallaj laughed. He said, "The true Kaaba is the heart. Circle your own heart 7 times, and you have completed the pilgrimage." This was the final straw. To say that the inner world is more important than the outer rituals is to destroy the power of the priesthood. If you can find God in your living room, why do you need the caliph? Why do you need the tax collector? Why do you need the judge? Hallaj was democratizing the divine. He was open-sourcing the Enlightenment. The judges wrote the fatwa, the death sentence. It was signed by 84 scholars, but there was one signature missing: Shibli. Shibli was Hallaj's old friend, a fellow Sufi, but Shibli was sober. He played the game. He kept the secrets. He acted crazy in public so people would ignore him, but inside, he was wise. When they asked Shibli to sign the death warrant, he wept. He looked at Hallaj and said, "We drink from the same cup, but you got drunk and smashed the cup in the marketplace. I hid the cup under my cloak." Hallaj smiled at him and said, "He who reveals the secrets of the king to the public must pay the price with his head." Hallaj knew he was going to die. In fact, he wanted to die. This is the hardest part for the modern mind to understand. Hallaj was not a victim trying to escape. He was a lover running towards the date. He believed that his physical body was the final veil separating him from the beloved. He called his executioners "my friends." He said, "Kill me, O my trustworthy friends, for in my killing is my life." He saw the execution not as a punishment, but as the final stage of the alchemy, the fana, the total annihilation. He famously said, "Between me and you there is only me. Take away the me, so only you remain." The night before the execution, he was allowed to pray in his cell. The guards reported that he spent the whole night talking to God like a friend. He was laughing, weeping, and reciting poetry. He said to God, "You gave me your secret, and now you invite me to dinner. The main course is my own blood. How generous you are." He viewed the entire scenario, the judge, the caliph, the executioner, the crowd, as God in drag. It was all a play, a divine drama orchestrated by the one consciousness to experience the intensity of sacrifice. On the morning of March 26, 922, they brought him out. The crowds were massive. Thousands of people lined the streets. Some were throwing stones, some were crying, some were just curious to see the sorcerer die. The execution was designed to be slow, painful, and humiliating. It was designed to deconstruct the human being layer by layer. First, they whipped him, 1,000 lashes. A normal man would die after 50. Hallaj did not scream. With every lash, he counted. He said, 1, 2, 3. He was meditating on the unity. The executioner was baffled. Why wasn't he begging for mercy? Why wasn't he confessing? Because Hallaj was already gone. He had shifted his consciousness out of the pain receptors into the witness state. He was watching his body being whipped from a distance, like watching a movie. This is the power of the matrix hacker. Pain is just information. If you don't attach the I to the pain, it is just sensation. It is just energy. When the whipping failed to kill him, they moved to the next stage, the mutilation. The executioner drew his sword. The order was to cut off his hands and feet. They cut off his right hand, the hand that had written the books, the hand that had pointed to the sky. Hallaj did not flinch. They cut off his left foot. He smiled. He looked at the crowd and said, "With these feet I walked the earth, but I have other feet that walk through the heavens. Cut them if you can." Then he did something that silenced the mob. With his bleeding stumps, he rubbed the blood over his face and his beard. He painted himself red. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Why do you do that, Mansour? Why do you paint your face?" Hallaj answered, "Because I have lost a lot of blood and my face is turning pale. I do not want you to think I am pale from fear. A man should look beautiful for his wedding. I am putting on my rouge. This level of courage is not human. It is supernatural. It terrified the authorities. They realized they were not killing a man, they were amplifying a legend. They cut off his left hand, then his right foot. He was now a torso, bleeding into the sand. He looked up at the sky and prayed, but he didn't pray for himself, he prayed for his killers. He said, "O Lord, these people have gathered here to kill me out of zeal for your religion. They think they are doing good. Forgive them. If you had revealed to them what you revealed to me, they would not be doing this. And if you had hidden from me what you hid from them, I would not be suffering this. Blessed is whatever you do." This echoes the words of Jesus on the cross. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Halaj reached the pinnacle of spiritual evolution. He had no enemies. He understood that the people killing him were just sleeping programs, acting out their script. They were not evil, they were ignorant, and ignorance is the nature of the simulation. The sun began to set. The caliph ordered the final blow. They were to cut out his tongue and then behead him. When they approached with the knife to take his tongue, Halaj asked for one last moment. He wanted to speak his final words to the matrix. He said, "My friend, do not be deceived by this house of loneliness. The one who invited me here is the one holding the knife." He was reaffirming the non-duality until the very end. There is no victim. There is no killer. There is only the one playing a game with itself. They cut out his tongue. The voice that had shaken the empire was silenced. Then the executioner swung the sword. The head of Mansur al-Hallaj fell to the ground. A cheer went up from the crowd. The heretic was dead. The system was safe. The firewall was patched. But the ritual was not over. The authorities were paranoid. They knew that martyrs are more dangerous dead than alive. They knew that his grave would become a shrine. They knew that his blood would be considered holy. So they ordered the total destruction of his remains. They burned his body. They collected the ashes. They took the head and displayed it on a bridge in Baghdad for a few days, then burned that too. Then they took the ashes to the minaret of the mosque and scattered them into the Tigris River. They wanted to erase him. They wanted to make sure that not a single atom of Mansur al-Hallaj remained on the earth. But they made a mistake, a fatal mistake. By scattering his ashes into the river, they put him into the water. As we discussed in the water memory video, water holds information. The ashes of Hallaj, charged with the supreme frequency of Ana al-Haq, entered the Tigris. The Tigris flows into the ocean. The ocean flows to the whole world. They tried to delete the file, but instead they uploaded it to the cloud. Legend says that when his ashes touched the river, the water began to bubble and form the words Ana al-Haq. The river rose up, threatening to flood Baghdad. This is a metaphor, but it represents a truth. You cannot kill the truth. You can only redistribute it. The death of Hallaj was the big bang of Sufism. Before him, Sufism was a quiet, ascetic practice. After him, it became a radical path of love and sacrifice. He became the archetype of the lover, the phoenix who burns to be reborn. Centuries later, the great poet Rumi would write about Hallaj. Rumi said, "When the pen is in the hand of a traitor, Mansur goes to the gallows." Rumi understood that Hallaj was the necessary sacrifice. He was the icebreaker ship that crashed into the frozen sea of dogma so that others could sail through. Attar of Nishapur, another great mystic, wrote his biography. He said that Hallaj was not just a man, but a spirit sent to disturb the sleep of the world. But what does this mean for us? Why does a 1,000-year-old execution matter to a person living in the age of AI and the internet? The story of Hallaj is the ultimate guide to the simulation. He showed us the levels of the game. Level 1, The sleeper. The person in the crowd throwing stones. They believe the rules are real. They believe the caliph is powerful. They live in fear. Level 2, the seeker. The person studying in the lodge. They know there is a secret, but they are afraid to speak it. They are sober. Level 3, the hacker, halaj. The one who realizes the code, the one who becomes the code. Ana al-Haq is the source code of the universe. It means, I am the reality. It doesn't mean, my ego, John Smith, is God. That is madness. It means, the consciousness looking through John Smith's eyes is the same consciousness that spun the galaxies. The system wants you to identify with your avatar. It wants you to think you are your name, your job, your body, your bank account. Halaj showed us that the avatar is expendable. You can cut off its hands, you can burn it, you can scatter it, but you cannot touch the player. We live in a time where the jurists and the caliphs have changed their names. Now they are called the media, the corporations, the algorithms. They still demand obedience. They still demand that you believe the illusion. They still punish those who speak the truth. They don't flay you alive in the square anymore. They cancel you. They deplatform you. They mock you. They call you a conspiracy theorist. They try to isolate you. The mechanism of control hasn't changed, only the technology has. Halaj teaches us the price of freedom. Freedom is not free. The red pill costs everything. If you want to wake up, you have to be willing to lose your standing in the matrix. You have to be willing to be called crazy. You have to be willing to lose your head, your logic, your ego, your safety. But he also teaches us the joy of freedom. Remember his smile? Remember him painting his face with blood? That is the joy of a man who cannot be threatened. What can you do to a man who knows he is deathless? You can't scare him. You can't bribe him. You can't control him. This is the ultimate superpower. When you realize Ana al-Haq, you become ungovernable. You become a sovereign node in the network. Halaj left us a prophecy. He said that one day the secrets he shouted would be whispered in every home. Look at us now. We are talking about quantum physics, simulation theory, and non-duality on the internet. Millions of people are accessing the wisdom that Halaj died for. The secret is out. The execution failed. We are all little Halajes now. We are all waking up to the fact that we are the creators of our reality. But we must be careful. We must learn from his fate. Halaj lacked skillful means. He shouted the truth too loud, too fast. He broke the minds of the people who weren't ready. Rumi learned from this. Rumi wrapped the truth in poetry, in dance, in stories. He gave the medicine with honey. That is why Rumi survived and Halaj died. We need the fire of Halaj, but the wisdom of Rumi. We need to know the truth, but speak it in a language the world can understand. The hidden atlas is not just about finding hidden continents. It is about finding the hidden God inside the mirror. The map leads to the center of your own chest. When you look in the mirror today, ask yourself, who is looking? Is it the body or is it the truth? If you strip away your name, your history, your fears, what remains? That silence that remains, that is al-Haq. Don't be afraid of the fire. The fire is just the burning of the illusions. Fly into the flame. Thank you for bearing witness to the martyr of truth. This story is heavy, but it is the foundation of everything we discuss on this channel. Halaj was the first to see the matrix code falling. He was the first to say, there is no spoon. If you feel the resonance of his courage, tell us in the comments. Subscribe to Hidden Atlas. We are the moths circling the flame. Until next time, stay drunk on truth, stay wild, And remember, you are the real.